They have Boise State, they have Arkansas, they have USC. There's no shot in Purdue. Those are the only big games that they have the rest of the way. They're not getting back into the college football playoff. They're not, Donnie. I don't care if they've won 10 straight.
Remember when they lost to NIU? No way, no care. What happens the rest of the season? They can't get in. Who was in the college football championship last year?
But they had marquee wins at some point.
I don't care. They lost to NIU.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
I needed a mental break when the season was over. Because it's a lot. It's a lot. You get tired of training. But, man, I never get tired of playing golf. I love it. I mean, every course is different. Every day is different. And some days you're like, oh, I got this. I got it. Then you go out there and shoot a 95 the next day. I'm like, damn.
The Smiley Show. Only on SportsGrid.
NFL season with about 750,000 downloads. Really interesting when you look at the third and the fourth spot. You have Bet365 and Fanatics, which were, again, that first week, they were the only sports books that grew. The good news for the other sports books in terms of downloads this week is even when you take out Fanatics and Bet365, app downloads still grew about 20% across the board overall.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left, Donnie, for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
It's time to rise and grind on a glorious Monday morning right here on the SportsGrid Network. It's time for the early line, and you are action-packed, ready to go for the next 2 hours. The only question, I'm going to bring in Joe Ranieri. My name's Donnie Rightside, of course. How long will your boy DRS be here? We hope for the next 2 hours, but the energy is so high, we might frazzle networks out here today, Joe.
I'm telling you, man, do not cross those wires, Donnie. Whatever you do, we got a lot to cover here today. It was a monster weekend across the board. I think the theme really was the dogs came barking this weekend. We were waiting for it, and we got it.
No, we certainly did. And I usually in the past, Joe, and we just like to start the show out here, you see maybe a blocked field goal or two per season. Did every team yesterday get multiple blocked field goals, Joe?
All within a 7-minute span, Donnie, in the 1 o'clock window. Yep. Every game you were watching that mattered, that had a potential game-winning, game-tying, some sort of special teams event, all took place within about a 7-minute span in the end of all of those 1 o'clock games yesterday. The Jets, the Packers, the Eagles, all of it was changing, and money was changing a lot in hands with these sports books yesterday during those 7 minutes.
Now, I'm angry, and a lot of times I'm angry with the Dallas Cowboys, and I am, and Dak Prescott. We'll get to that in just a little bit, Joe, but let's get to the 7 and 7, the hottest topics across the sports landscape, which included last night's Sunday NFL game at night, which was the 0-2 Kansas City Chiefs and the 0-2 New York Giants. They actually had a blocked extra point in this game. And by the way, I bet their field goal kicker wished a lot more were blocked because they didn't have a field goal kicker last night. The Giants, as Graham Gano was injured before the game even started. Final score, Chiefs 22-9 over the Giants. I don't know what you're going to do without a kicker in this game. You needed him in a couple key moments. They didn't have him, but Russell Wilson, get it together, man, with some bad interceptions. The Chiefs avoid disaster, now 1-2.
I swear, Donnie, when they had said that at the start of the game, I'm going, wait a minute, this is like a crazy flashback. Didn't we just have this a year ago in Washington where, again, same situation, Gano got himself hurt and they couldn't kick any extra points or field goal? Very, very strange. And you know what? The ultimate ending was exactly what happened a year ago when they didn't have a kicker. They lost that game. And they lost this game simply because the second half, they could not stop, good old Patrick Mahomes and company. from getting the job done. So kudos for not being 0-3 to the Kansas City Chiefs. But if it could go wrong, it did go wrong for the Giants again.
Certainly did. Maybe help us on the way for those Kansas City Chiefs. We'll find out in the next coming weeks here, and we'll certainly see if they can get some of that wide receiver help back. How about this? The Pittsburgh Steelers on the road yesterday came away with a victory, 21-14 over the New England Patriots. And how about this? Aaron Rodgers tosses 2 touchdowns here, moving up the streak. Brett Favre passed him. How about that? And by the way, this was the one game I looked at yesterday. Said this line stinks to high heaven. Why are the Pittsburgh Steelers 1.5-point favorites when all that love is coming on the Patriots? 21-14, winner by the Steelers.
Well, listen, Donnie, you do this long enough, right? You watch enough of this, you bet enough of this. There are, there's something called variance that you just can't factor in. The Pittsburgh Steelers should have lost this game by 3 touchdowns yesterday, but since the Patriots could not hold on to the ball and turned it over not once, not twice, but 5 times, it's very hard to win football games when you're throwing interceptions in the end zone and fumbling at the half-yard line, which is exactly part of the problem for the Patriots. This is still not a good-looking Pittsburgh Steelers team at all.
How about talking Kirk Cousins early in the season? Oh, where did he get traded somewhere? No, he didn't. He actually played football yesterday. What? Did Michael Penix get hurt? No. Michael Penix was just terrible. If there's one game yesterday that you looked at and said, I don't understand this final score, the Carolina Panthers 30, the Atlanta Falcons 0. Raheem Morris. I have no words for this game, because if you would have asked me for one team probably getting blown out, it's probably the Carolina Panthers. But doing the blowing out, 30-0, my goodness.
I mean, gross, Donnie, on so many levels, just gross. And again, it's one thing if you look awful against, let's say, the Ravens or the Bills, right? Or, a defense that is just like, you looked awful and got shut out against the Carolina Panthers, one of the worst defensive teams in the last couple of decades, and they made you look stupid. So, no, I don't think there's a quarterback controversy with Kirk Cousins yet, but I got to tell you, a lot of red flags went up after that game yesterday from Mr. Penix Jr., I'll tell you that.
Absolutely brutal performance. No points against the Carolina Panthers. I mean, it's unbelievable. Sometimes you see some of these games, but we usually say, that's baseball. No, that's the NFL. Any given Sunday, you'll see some crazy things happen. Now, you might want to look away if you're saying, how did James Conner get injured? That ankle went the wrong direction on a tackle, and also to add insult to injury, the Arizona Cardinals lost yesterday late on a field goal to close that game out. The 49ers improved to 3-0, but James Conner, done for the year.
That had to have been the most frustrating game. Terrible injury, first and foremost there. You kind of saw he went over. It was not good at all. You knew there was an issue there. So he is done now for the season. We'll have to have surgery. But the final 5 minutes of that game for both teams was the most frustrating thing in the world to be a part of, Donnie. The Cardinals figured out a way to lose the game after Mac Jones and the 49ers wanted to give them the game with a safety late and could not hold on to it. And the 49ers, the lesser of two evils in that spot.
Yeah, by the way, a late 3rd and 8 play, which had a great pass by, you had Murray's quarterback to the wide receiver and got knocked away at the last moment, which gave the 49ers the football. They drove down and kicked the field goal here. Credit them by the 49ers, man. A lot of injuries to a lot of key situations, which included Bosa in that game, and able to come away with that victory. 3-0 in the season now for the 49ers. Najee Harris, I was watching this when it happened live, and you always know that non-contact injury, and you know exactly what it is. Achilles, my goodness, man. So you get the superficial wounds to the eye, and then you blow your Achilles out. Not a great season for Najee Harris, and his season, it's over.
Welcome to the Hampton era there for the Chargers, and the kid stepped up in a big way in that spot, but they are going to need to add some depth there to the running back spot now with that injury. Hate to see that because he did work really hard to try to get back into that spot there with the organization, but you know the Achilles, that non-contact injury, you always know what that is. And unfortunately, Harris likely done not only for the rest of the season, but we'll see how long it takes him to get back.
Yeah, the Achilles and the ACL, man, just devastating injuries. Like, oh, he'll be back next year. That long process of just trying to get your body back right takes an entire year, maybe year and a half. That's a tough draw there for Najee Harris. How about Cal Raleigh? He banged his 58th home run yesterday, and his 57th, that was also record-breaking as well. Did you know right now, at many sports books, Joe, a minus 200 or less favorite now, Aaron Judge to win AL MVP. Cal Raleigh closing the gap here.
Well, I mean, I think even Cal Raleigh would tell you, more importantly, they swept the Astros in that spot. Now 3 games up in the division with 6 games to play. And while it's great that he got his 58th and likely going to get 60, which is even crazier, but again, he would trade it all in just to make sure that they get to that postseason and can do some damage there. That's for sure.
Now, we always play armchair quarterback on a Monday, right? So we don't get to talk a ton of Major League Baseball on the early line. But understand this, Joe. If he hits 60 home runs and they win the division, can you explain to me how he's not the MVP of the American League? Really?
Markets. That's the only thing I can come up with, Donnie. Market. One guy plays for the New York media market. The other guy plays all the way in the Pacific Northwest. And that's the problem. Perception is reality. And right now, the perception has been it's always Aaron Judge, because you're hearing a lot more about him than you are Seattle, even though it's been a great run.
Yeah, and how about this? Asia Wilson, first 4-time WNBA MVP. Is anybody watching with that league yesterday? Forget about the WNBA, the NFL. Who was watching the WNBA, Joe? You? Were you watching it all day?
I thought it was over already, Donnie, to be completely honest with you. And then I realized that the Indiana Fever is still winning games without Caitlin Clark, which is just mind-blowing as well. So a couple more weeks, and it's bye-bye WNBA.
It's bye-bye WNBA talk, because we got to get back to that Sunday night football game. Get a kicker, make a play, Giants. What are you doing?
Aaron Rodgers, 2-year stint with the Jets that he'll never want to remember. When he goes into the Hall of Fame, he'll just say, please don't mention that. Now he's with Pittsburgh, and he had his best game since Green Bay. Threw 5 touchdowns. Is it 5, right? Am I right about that, Sam? I don't want to screw this up, too. 4 touchdown passes. Yeah, I screwed up again. 4 touchdown passes against the New York Jets. Buy or sell, Aaron Rodgers will finish the season as a QB1 in a 12-team league, top 12 fantasy quarterback. Buy or sell.
You know, the cop out here is he stays healthy at Jets, right? He'll do it. They're not asking a lot. Top 12. Purdy's already not going to be top 12, right? He's already going to miss this week, probably another week, maybe as much as 5. They've said. So you knock him out there. There'll be other quarterbacks that get hurt, so you knock them out. I don't think he'd ever get top 5, top 6, top 8. But the 9 to 12, I hate to say it, he wasn't bad last year with the Jets. Right? They didn't win games, but he wasn't bad. He had it when he played. He was a good, solid quarterback. You know, he can still sling it. He still can. I'm the first to admit those 4 touchdowns. It wasn't like he had a monster game. A couple of his interceptions were dropped. You know, that should have been picked off there. It seems like passes he did complete were for touchdowns. A couple of breakdowns by the Jets as well. So I don't see him really he's going to win a league for you. But I'm going to buy this if he stays healthy. Hell, just give me 15 games, and I think he can be top 12. So I'll buy this.
I'm going to sell it. Yeah. I mean, games against the Browns and games against the Ravens. And look, I don't know if the Jets defense is as bad as they've showed. If it is, then this may be his best game of the season. So, yeah, I'm going to sell. I think he's on the outside of this looking in.
Fantasy Sports Today. Fridays starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. Only on SportsGrid.
The action is hot. It's the Sports Grid Network. The people you need at the right time on a Monday morning to play armchair quarterback. It's Donnie Right-Side. It's Joe Ranieri. It's how we get down here. And the Kansas City Chiefs played the New York Giants on Sunday Night Football from the Meadowlands. Now, the one thing that I do want to talk about this game is the importance of it. The Chiefs go 0-3. It's a wrap on the season. We all knew that. Well, same thing with the New York Giants, who actually are 0-3 now. The performance last night, not great for the Giants offense, but they played and they were close for the majority of this game. But sometimes, Joe, it just comes down to, do you have a kicker that can make kicks? Like, I'm not saying that having a kicker in the game would have won it for the Giants, but there was a lot of opportunities to put points on the board where maybe if you're Russell Wilson in the offense, you say, we can't settle here. Like, we have to take shots we're not supposed to take, which led to a couple interceptions for Russell Wilson. But even on the opening drive of the game, getting points on the board to put the Chiefs behind, they couldn't do that because Graham Gano got injured pre-game, which then led to a Russell Wilson performance, 18 of 32, $160, and 2 interceptions. The time is coming near for Russell Wilson to not be the starting quarterback, but the focus before we get there, Joe, is the Chiefs staved off an 0-3 start. Patrick Mahomes, 22 of 37 for 224 and a touchdown. They desperately got the win they needed.
Yeah, but let's not, good, bad here, right? Kansas City, while they were 0-2 heading into that game, as it turns out, by the time that game started, Donnie, the Kansas City Chiefs lost to 2 teams that are currently undefeated here and considered contenders for the Super Bowl. So it wasn't like they lost the Carolinas of the world here. So the fact that they were going into MetLife on the road, I don't think really matters to them. The only question, it wasn't if Kansas City would win this game. It was by how much here. And while they did struggle offensively early, and give credit to the Giants defense, once again, a Chiefs defense, especially that secondary that got lit up in that first game against Herbert and the Chargers, that's a real defense again. And they are holding the fort down here until reinforcements are coming. And reinforcements are coming for the Kansas City Chiefs. So good win. They did exactly what they needed to do to beat a bad team, and they got it done. And they got a rare cover as that kind of favorite in a game, because it hasn't been like that in a while here for Kansas City.
You're exactly right. Like, one of the best defensive coordinators in football is Steve Spagnuolo. He shined last night. And again, it's like, the Giants offense, the Giants offense looked pretty good the week before. Only scored 9 points in this game. Is something certainly to happen. But also understand this. Could have that touchdown, in the first half where all right, hey, we're going to kick the extra point. Nope. You got that extra point block. Like, all of those, momentum turning occasions that the Giants just couldn't get. But the one thing I was happy with, though, Cam Scatterby last night, 10 carries, 60 yards on the ground and a touchdown, and then chipped in with 6 catches for 61 yards. He actually looked like a really impressive rookie yesterday, Joe.
Yeah, no, very impressive there. And, good. I mean, that they need some good news, this Giants organization, right? You drafted this kid. Yeah. He's also a fan favorite, right? He comes with his own personality, his own persona. And while you may not be winning games, you're giving the Giant fan base some hope here to the future. It'll be just a matter of time for Jackson Dart is out there anyway. And then, at least the Giant fan base has something to look forward to, because the kid was great for him last night.
How about looking forward to this? Travis Kelce might not be happy in the offense right now, not making the plays he wants, but Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs came away with a victory. Here's Big Red after the game talking at his post-game press conference.
In particular, when you haven't had one. So that was important to take a step forward. The second quarter was hard to watch there. But the third and fourth quarter, I thought our guys really came together and played well. I thought defensively we did some really good things with the turnovers, the interceptions and turnovers. I thought Bolton with the 14 tackles did a heck of a job, and our third downs were incredible. So great pressure up front. It starts there. And then likewise on the offensive side, Pat had some really good things he did out there. And again, this game is the margin between winning and losing is so small. So I know New York people are very passionate. So give Brian an opportunity, man. He's got great personality for this sport and for you people here. So.
Stop it, Big Red. We didn't need to hear that. You knew your season was on the line. You got the victory. Get out of Dodge. Go back home. We don't have to tell the Giants fans to give it up for Brian Daboll, who's been a horrendous head coach in a horrendous organization right now, and give him time. How much time you need? What, 0-17, Joe? Is that what he's talking about?
And just keep this in mind, Donnie. The more Indy keeps putting up 40 points with Danny Dimes as their quarterback, the worse it's going to get for Brian Dable, who, of course, couldn't do anything with him while he was on the Giants there. But suddenly Shane Steichen gets him. And look at that. What a absolute dream team, huh? So you got a quarterback that you couldn't figure out, Dable, but feels as Shane Steichen did. But either which way, the Giants... It's going to be it's a transition year. You've got your franchise, at least you think you have your franchise quarterback sitting on the bench. So it might have to be a new regime's quarterback, though, before it's all said and done.
Let's do big picture, Joe, both teams here. We'll start with the New York Giants. The big picture is not going to make the playoffs. We always knew that, but now the future might be now for Jackson Dart. How long are we holding on with Russell Wilson in this inept offense, it looks like, or at least last night, the inept offense?
Yeah, well, that's 2 out of 3 games inept offense. And unless you keep playing the Dallas defense, guess what that's going to be? It's going to be an inept offense here. So something is going to have to give a spark. I think maybe by week 5, week 6, I think that might be the opportunity to get him in. But you also don't want to send a kid in there to get killed, right? I mean, that's probably not a very good thing either. Let's not just put him in to put him in. If it's a lost season, well, then, let's give him his work sparingly there and look toward next year. I didn't want to get him in there and get him killed with that offensive line either.
No, you certainly don't want to do that. But also from a Chiefs perspective, we talk about it so much. They're going to get healthy at wide receiver, and that's going to make a big difference and help out Patrick Mahomes. Tyquan Thornton's been pretty good the past couple weeks. That might be a guy that you weren't looking forward to before the season started, but now he could slide into a 3 or 4 role there and be like, hey, man, we got 3, 4 formidable wide receivers heading down the stretch now. It could be big for the Chiefs.
Who would have thought that Thornton was a 2022 Patriots second-round pick? They signed him to the practice squad last year because the Patriots threw their hands up in him, and it might be one of the best moves that they have made this season so far because the kid can flat-out ball, and that's a good thing here for Kansas City.
He had a couple big deep catches yesterday, one which didn't count, and then the next one, like very next, had a great play which got him back down to the goal line. Fantastic stuff here. The Chiefs get the victory. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings. Are they the real deal with Carson Wentz? And how bad is Cincinnati's defense? Oof.
They have Boise State, they have Arkansas, they have USC. There's no shot in Purdue. Those are the only big games that they have the rest of the way. They're not getting back into the college football playoff. They're not, Donnie. I don't care if they've won 10 straight.
Remember when they lost to NIU? No way, no care. What happens the rest of the season? They can't get in. Who was in the college football championship last year?
But they had marquee wins at some point.
I don't care. They lost to NIU.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
I needed a mental break when the season was over. Because it's a lot. It's a lot. You get tired of training. But, man, I never get tired of playing golf. I love it. I mean, every course is different. Every day is different. And some days you're like, oh, I got this. I got it. Then you go out there and shoot a 95 the next day. I'm like, damn.
The Smiley Show. Only on SportsGrid.
NFL season with about 750,000 downloads. Really interesting when you look at the 3rd and the 4th spot. You have Bet365 and Fanatics, which were, again, that first week, they were the only sports books that grew. The good news for the other sports books in terms of downloads this week is even when you take out Fanatics and Bet365, app downloads still grew about 20% across the board overall.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left, Donnie, for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
We're fighting this morning. We're absolutely fighting this morning right here on the early line. It's Donnie Rightside and Joe Ranieri. Me and Joe Ranieri aren't fighting each other. We're fighting the elements here. That's what we're doing to make it through the show and bring you every single piece of information that you need, which includes a Minnesota Vikings win yesterday. I mean, somebody anticipated that, right, Joe? Minus 3-point spread. Oh, Minnesota can win this game at home. 48-10. Final score. Carson Wentz gets the start. 14 of 20, $173 and 2 touchdowns. And by the way, the Minnesota Vikings defense, they scored 2 touchdowns all by themselves. Jake Browning, who I thought could throw 2 touchdown passes in that game, he threw 1. He got crushed. He had a terrible rating, a terrible QBR, and a terrible performance by the Bengals. If there was anything like, hey, let's hold the fort until Joe Burrow possibly could get back in November, December, boy, it was all squashed yesterday. A 38-point loss, a historic loss for the Bengals.
Yeah, and again, Donnie, we talked about this last week with the Minnesota Vikings. Whether it's Carson Wentz, J.J. McCarthy, the theme for this team was going to be all about defense. And that defense is going to give you an opportunity to win games until you can figure out the quarterback spot here. A lot of weapons, although they did lose Aaron Jones, right, last week. So you thought maybe the running game, oh boy, Carson Wentz. But more importantly, Flores and that defense got everybody back. Van Ginkel was on the field there. Their secondary was back. And you saw a healthy Minnesota defense, what they are able to do to a team like the Cincinnati Bengals, who's also got a ton of weapons at a backup quarterback. And all of a sudden you realize, yeah, this is going to be very interesting watching the involvement here of the offense of Minnesota moving forward.
It is. And by the way, Carson Wentz filling in there, waiting for their young rookie quarterback to come back. And maybe that ankle takes a couple extra weeks to heal. And you say to yourself, okay, well, he'll be just fine, Carson Wentz. And maybe we can make the playoffs with Wentz at the quarterback position. Houston Texans, I don't think you're making the playoffs, guys. 0-3 to start the season with a loss yesterday to the Jacksonville Jaguars, 17-10, which also means there's another team in that division, Joe, that's 3-0 at the top of the standings. That's the Colts. And now 2-1 Jacksonville Jaguars. Stroud was 25 of 38 with 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Just not good enough. The offense just isn't good enough for the Texans, and that wasn't supposed to be an issue over the past 2 years, Joe.
Yeah, it's gone from bad to worse. That offensive line is terrible, Donnie. We said it. They still can't run the ball. And the worst part about it is that, Jacksonville's offense is no better. The difference between the Minnesota, let's say, and Houston is that while Houston can play defense, they are not combined in maybe 8 games this year going to score as many points as Minnesota did yesterday. And that's the big difference. If you can't score, you can't win in the NFL. And unfortunately, that defense is getting more and more hurt of Houston, which means, that's there could be. I think C.J. Stroud starting to talk to himself here now and starting to see ghosts, which is not good.
I mean, all that, we stole this guy in the draft, should have went number 1, fell to us at number 2. Oh, my goodness, we're going to have fantastic seasons and performances out of CJ. It's just not happening now. The offense, something is wrong there. Nico Collins had a big game, but nobody else was able to step up. We need more explosive plays for Houston. That's a bad loss. You know what? Here's a good win. The Indianapolis Colts, after 2 games indoors, they're going to go outdoors. And yeah, the Titans might not be that good, 41-20. That offense for the Colts is absolutely legit, Joe Ranieri. And maybe they do have their quarterback in Daniel Jones. Efficient, 18 of 25, 228, a touchdown, no interceptions, a 113 passer rating. And Jonathan Taylor's been shot out of a cannon this year. Another 100-yard performance and 3 touchdowns yesterday. A blowout victory for the Colts. Is it time to pay attention to the Colts?
Well, why don't we give it one more week when they actually play a real team and a real defense? I mean, right now they've looked very good against inferior competition, but next week they have the Rams on the road. And let's see how they look offensively against that Rams defense, and then we'll have a conversation after that game to figure out whether or not they are for real. But there is no doubting that Shane Steichen and Daniel Jones, they got something rolling there, and we're just going to see how it looks like against teams over 500 shortly.
Don't blame Geno. Raiders got crushed by the Washington Commanders. They didn't even have their starting quarterback in Jaden Daniels. They went Marcus Mariota, who was very efficient yesterday. If you would have told me before the game started, hey, by the way, Geno's going to go on the road against the Commanders, 3 touchdown passes and no interceptions. Oh, we should be fine. And Ashton Ginty will be over 60 yards on the ground. Or Trey Tucker, 8 for 145, who scored all 3 touchdowns and get beat by 17. Oof. Tough.
Yeah. Ugly, Donnie, just say ugly. And they weren't the only ones. There's a few ugly ones here yesterday that are head scratching.
I'm telling you, the NFL, usually, hey, we know everything we need to know by week number 3. No, we don't. There were so many games yesterday with backup quarterbacks who played well, backup quarterbacks who didn't play well, crazy scores. And the key word of the day is special teams, man, across the league. It's been absolutely incredible to watch it play out. Let's talk Philadelphia Eagles and Los Angeles Rams. Wait till you see how that game finished. Next.
They have Boise State, they have Arkansas, they have USC. There's no shot in Purdue. Those are the only big games that they have the rest of the way. They're not getting back into the college football playoff. They're not, Donnie. I don't care if they've won 10 straight.
Remember when they lost to NIU? No way, no care. What happens the rest of the season? They can't get in. Who was in the college football championship last year?
They had marquee wins at some point
I don't care. They lost to NIU.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
I needed a mental break when the season was over. Because it's a lot. It's a lot. You get tired of training. But, man, I never get tired of playing golf. I love it. I mean, every course is different. Every day is different. And some days you're like, oh, I got this. I got it. Then you go out there and shoot a 95 the next day. I'm like, damn.
The Smiley Show. Only on SportsGrid.
NFL season with about 750,000 downloads. Really interesting when you look at the third and the fourth spot. You have Bet365 and Fanatics, which were, again, that first week, they were the only sports books that grew. The good news for the other sports books in terms of downloads this week is even when you take out Fanatics and Bet365, app downloads still grew about 20% across the board overall.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left, Donnie, for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the game of the day yesterday, 1 o'clock start, the 2-0 Los Angeles Rams and the 2-0 Philadelphia Eagles. I'm Donnie Rightside along with Joe Ranieri here playing Monday Morning Quarterback right here on the Early Line on the SportsGrid Network. The place that you need to be was Philadelphia yesterday. Joe, I looked at this game and said, you know what? I think the Rams are going to do a lot of things that are going to frustrate the Eagles. So I took a team total on the Rams at 19.5. They had 19 by the break, and immediately in the second half, sacked Jalen Hurts, forced a fumble, and punched in another touchdown to go up 26-7. That's all she wrote. The crowd was upset. They were booing, and everybody's going to go home unhappy yesterday until they weren't. 26 unanswered points by the Philadelphia Eagles to win 33-26, which included, unbelievably, 2 blocked field goals in the fourth quarter and 1 returned for a touchdown. Why was that key? Yeah, the Eagles blocked the field goal. They won the game. But the big man picked up the football and rumbled 60-plus yards to give the Eagles the win and the cover. I'll ask you this, Joe, before we get to those miraculous plays at the end of the game. What happened to the Rams?
Well, Donnie, I would make the argument that this wasn't so much that the Eagles won the game as it was that the Rams lost this game here. They had dominated this Eagles team here throughout this game. Certainly early on, the line of scrimmage was owned by the Rams. And the problem was they, in the second half, they stopped playing. And by the way, that besides that whole block kick epidemic, apparently, that ran wild in the NFL yesterday, that was one of 2 blocked kicks, by the way, that the Rams and that special teams unit there were part of. So the Rams should have won it, could have won it. There are some issues in that secondary, but I can tell you, if they can figure some things out there up front, and in that secondary, the Rams are going to be fine. But the Eagles, kudos, they got it done. But the Rams lost that game more than anything else, Donnie.
Big fourth down conversion on a touchdown pass to Devontae Smith late. Then they missed the 2-point conversion. You knew that would lead to the Rams going down the field, and they did. They just got that field goal blocked. But understand this, like Jalen Hurts really brought this team back. They couldn't do a darn thing in the first half to get the tush push after an interception from Stafford. Okay, 7-0 Eagles, and they completely went dormant for about 2 hours of game time before they were able to wake up with that Dallas Goedert touchdown. Now, watching this game all the way through, you're right about it, Joe. Like, Kyron Williams, 20 carries, 94 yards, almost 5 yards per carry. Blake Corum, 8 carries, 53 yards, 6.6. They ran for 5.2 yards per carry on the road and still came away with a loss because all Jalen Hurts does is win. And yes, it does take 2 to tango. And for the many field goals that the Rams kicked early, for some reason, for that, chain to break down from snap to place to hold to kick, it was unbelievable to watch. Nobody blocks field goals. It looked like the Eagles were in the backfield on those final 2 kicks. Because understand this, Joe. This was a 5-point game where you had a chip shot field goal to go up 8 points, which really put the pressure on the Philadelphia Eagles. That got blocked. Then the end of the game, another shorter field goal that got blocked, which got returned for a touchdown by Jordan Davis. Credit the Philadelphia Eagles with a huge comeback victory. But even me, the staunchest Eagles supporter, was saying like, my God, 26-7. The Rams look like they are the best team in the NFC. And fast forward a half hour, the Eagles come away with the win and the cover. It was astounding to watch, but also understand this, Joe. Get A.J. Brown the football. They didn't get him the football in the first half. It was terrible. You know what they started doing in the second half? Throwing him the football, and things changed on a dime.
Well, it did. I mean, 14 catches, 169 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns between Brown and Smith. So, but it took them a little while to get there because nothing was working early on. And then they started to attack that secondary of the Rams, which could very well be that bugaboo once again. But there's no doubt that front 7 of the Rams is legit, but they got some work to do in that secondary.
They certainly do. And by the way, if we do have a little bit, I don't know if that graphic got posted up there, but Jordan Davis at 336 pounds, which he ain't no way he's 336. We're in high school. It's like, hey, man, make me 6'1" when I'm 5'11", like nobody cares or checks on that. 336, more like probably 366, rumbling down the field, the heaviest football player to score a touchdown on a block kick of 50-plus yards in NFL history. How about the big man? Get a big man some love, Joe.
Yeah, and just if you felt an earthquake yesterday around this time, it was this big man running into the end zone, and the amount of money exchanging hands in sports books around the world on that one final play there, which took the Eagles from, yes, winning the game, but not covering, to winning the game and covering. So, yes, that was a huge final play there.
By the way, and again, sometimes you look at games where if you had the 3.5 on the Rams, yes, it was the right side. Anytime you get up 26-7, I don't even care if it's in the first quarter. You're supposed to win that game outright, let alone lose it. But the fact that you're lining up for that field goal is like a Rams backer. Like, forget about even a Rams fan. Buddy, just shank it to the right. Like, no big deal. Yep. Make it. We as long we just can't have a return, which is so rare in the NFL, and particularly at the end of the game, because if it's ties, yeah, of course he's going to return it. But how much time were you running? Like, he's going to slide at the 50, he's going to slide at the 40. They're going to tell him to get down, but nobody chased him on the Rams. So he's like, hey, I'll just house this thing, and there's no time on the clock, and away you go. That's such a tough beat. But also, if you back the Eagles yesterday, that's found money, and nothing feels as good as that. Well, I'll tell you what doesn't feel as good as that, Joe. If you're an Atlanta Falcons fan today, hey, look at this, man. We can go 2-1. We're on the road against the lowly Carolina Panthers with no offensive line. Final score, 30-0 Carolina. Bryce Young, 16 of 24, no touchdown passes. Didn't need it here. Running game, barely needed it for Carolina. Atlanta, a no-show in an NFL divisional game. My gosh.
Well, I'd like to say that's shocking here, but it's so typical of Raheem Morris teams here, who's supposed to be some sort of defensive guru, and yet he allowed Bryce Young and one of the most anemic offenses to drop 30 points on him in that game. But even more concerning is what we got. I mean, listen, you're all going to have bad games here, but Penix Jr., that was beyond bad on the road in that spot there. I shudder to think what's going to happen when you play actually a real defense, a Super Bowl contending defense here. That was just ugly on so many levels. We'll see. I mean, we'll chalk it up to one bad game, but Donnie, there were a lot of red flags popping up in that game with him for me there.
I mean, you got to be kidding me at that point. Like, you're probably looking at this game saying to yourself, like, all right, well, where do you go from here?
Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah, no, where do you go from there? You got to lick your wounds and you got to get back in there. That is ultimately what it is all about. But the reality for that team and for that quarterback is you're in a good spot, because even if it doesn't work for him, and I have my doubts now with him, the reality is you have a $180 million quarterback behind him that you are paying money in order to be able to step in and take over. But a lot of concerns after that game yesterday. And, of course, him being benched heading into the fourth quarter and everyone getting to see Kirk Cousins. Raheem Morris at the end of the game was like, yeah, I don't think so. This is not a problem. There's no quarterback controversy here. Let's not create one. But there's going to be a lot of eyes on this Atlanta team next week. And we'll have to check it out throughout the week. Maybe, just maybe, some overreactions to what we saw in that game. And maybe Atlanta will be a buy-on team coming up this week here. But my goodness, it was awful when I tell you absolutely awful. Not as awful as it was for the Patriots in New England. Another game in which they had the opportunity to win, and they absolutely blew it. And they did so by turning the ball over not once, not twice, not three, 5 times they turned the ball over in that game. 2 of them were in the Steelers, right around the end zone of the Steelers. So they just did everything in their power to give the Steelers an opportunity to win that game. And when you go up against Aaron Rodgers and an experienced team, guess what? They took advantage of it and they won. Even though the Steelers were outplayed in that game in a lot of aspects, if you can't hold on to the ball, you can't win football games. And boy, oh boy, the Jets were this close to getting that first win. We could be talking about a 2-1 Jets team. A 2-1 Jets team instead of a 0-3 Jets team. So I can tell you now, it's a work in progress for the Jets, and we need to take a step back and just relax with that. There's more to come here, and we got much more to get to, too, as well, as the early line continues with Tom Vecchio coming up next.
They have Boise State, they have Arkansas, they have USC. There's no shot in Purdue. Those are the only big games that they have the rest of the way. They're not getting back into the college football playoff. They're not, Donnie. I don't care if they've won 10 straight.
Remember when they lost to NIU? No way, no care. What happens the rest of the season? They can't get in. Who was in the college football championship last year?
But they had marquee wins at some point.
I don't care. They lost to NIU.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
I needed a mental break when the season was over. Because it's a lot. It's a lot. You get tired of training. But, man, I never get tired of playing golf. I love it. I mean, every course is different. Every day is different. And some days you're like, oh, I got this. I got it. Then you go out there and shoot a 95 the next day. I'm like, damn.
The Smiley Show. Only on SportsGrid.
NFL season with about 750,000 downloads. Really interesting when you look at the third and the fourth spot. You have Bet365 and Fanatics, which were, again, that first week, they were the only sports books that grew. The good news for the other sports books in terms of downloads this week is even when you take out Fanatics and Bet365, app downloads still grew about 20% across the board overall.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left, Donnie, for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into the early line here on a Monday fun day as we try to make heads or tails of everything we just witnessed here over the weekend, especially in the NFL Week 3, which did not disappoint, especially if you were looking at the dogs barking this past weekend. But don't forget, we got one more game coming up here tonight, and it's a good one with the Ravens and the Lions. Let's bring in our good friend Tom Vecchio here as we get ready for what should be, I think, a pretty good litmus test for these two teams. But when you look back at what we just witnessed yesterday, chaos. It had been pretty chalky up until yesterday in the NFL through 2 weeks. And then yesterday shows up, and all of a sudden teams can't play. They can't kick field goals. They can't block anybody. The special teams, the mistakes, the turnovers, just very sloppy football, Tom. And I'm wondering, because it's not just one team. It's a lot of teams here. So could it be lack of preseason games? What is it, do you think, that would get us to have that many mistakes from games that were won and then lost in a matter of a couple of minutes yesterday?
It's certainly very interesting. Yesterday, I saw a stat prior to the games that teams that were, I think it was at least 4-point favorites through the first 2 weeks, they were 14-0 or 14-1, whatever it was, with, against the spread. Just absolutely all chalk, like you said. And then yesterday, things kind of came crashing down. And to a point, I don't want to say some of these good teams that are heavy favorites, are resting on their laurels, or teams that are, looking ahead. For example, the Packers. It's okay, they're on the road playing the Browns, but it's hang on. Next week, they're on the road. Micah Parsons going back to Dallas. So, do we have look-ahead spots? Are teams taking, the Panthers a little bit easier? But we got to remember that the Panthers played both of their first two games on the road. That was their home opener. They're 0-2. They're at home. They got to come out with something. And, we could go through game by game and find those. But, we see this at times trends throughout the NFL season. It's hey, it's all chalk, then it's all dogs, then we're all over the place. It's one of those spots where you have to be looking at each game individually. I think you don't want to be taking one grand trend and be all the dogs are covering, therefore I'm backing the Lions. Tonight, I like the Lions. I think the Lions a little bit much. I think they are a good team. I think this is going to be a good litmus test for the Ravens. I think their secondary is a little bit overrated, in my opinion. There's some good offense on the Lions side of things. So we have to be looking at each game individually and be okay, we have some real factors that are pointing us to the dog being very live today.
It's true, though. I mean, you can't put all your eggs into the trend basket here, but the reality is there's one thing all those teams that lost yesterday, they all had in common, and a lot of it had to do with terrible special teams and lack of disciplined turnovers. Cincinnati had 5 fumbles by 5 of its best players. And they get blown out. New England should have won a game, but they turned it over 5 times. So there's this recurring theme with some of these bad teams, and even teams that we think might be decent, that you got to go, yeah, we got to get this cleaned up here. But you're right, tonight they are going to have an opportunity. Detroit is, I think, to really give themselves and the world here. Are you for real here? You gave up 45 points in a playoff loss to Washington last year, but you didn't have Aiden Hutchinson. This defense of the Lions is better, I think, this year than they were in January, but they're going up against a team that just dropped, 40-plus points in 2 games? So what gives here tonight, Tom? What are you thinking?
The total obviously is suggesting that we're going to see a ton of scoring, 53.5, 53, whatever it might close at. This is a game that, a lot of people would say a 28-24 type of final. I think that's what we should be in for tonight. And that's a lot of points. I understand that. I think it's a bit much when it comes to the Ravens laying 5.5. I think they are a very good team, but this is not to say that there aren't, faults in their game. We saw that in week 1. We saw that at times last week when, and granted, the Browns' run defense is unbelievable right now, but not being able to get the ball into the end zone when you're starting off at 1st and goal, when you have Derrick Henry and you're settling for field goals, to me, that's an issue. And you can't do that. You could do that maybe against a team like the Browns because their offense is inept at times, and we saw that yesterday. But if you give the Lions and that offensive group extra chances, that's not going to end well for you. So I think the Ravens are a little bit overvalued in this spot. I think people are buying into the Lions, changing both offensive coordinators. There are some negative home road and outdoor splits for Jared Goff, not just since he's been with the Lions, but throughout his entire career. There are some signs to say the Ravens should come away with a 10-point victory. I'm not sure if that's the case tonight.
And who are we looking at here from a prop betting perspective? What do you like in this game?
Let's turn to Sam Laporta for a touchdown. And the odds for this have been kind of all over the place. I saw a plus 220 out there. I saw a plus 245. I love buying into players early in the season that haven't scored yet. We see him with the tied for the second highest target share on the team, second highest red zone target share. When you look through the Ravens have allowed the sixth most receiving yards to opposing tight ends through 2 games. And this is the sixth most, and they've only played 2 games. There are teams that have played 3 games and are better than them against opposing tight ends. They are really, really bad against tight ends to start the season. So I like looking to that. I think he gets into the end zone. I think the Ravens will try and mine their P's and Q's essentially when it comes to St. Brown. We know what the running backs can do in the red zone. There's going to be a player that goes unchecked, and I think it's going to be Laporta tonight.
Liking Laporta, liking maybe over the top there with Zay Flowers as well, and maybe a couple other receivers a big part of this game.
Yeah, when it comes to the Ravens, there's no one that is going to conceivably take consistent targets away from Zay Flowers. Will DeAndre Hopkins be in the mix? Sure. Will we see Mark Andrews in there? Sure. Once Isaiah likely gets back, he'll get some targets. But when we look to Zay Flowers, he has a 42% target share right now. It's him and it's everyone else in the Ravens passing offense. When they pass the ball, it often goes to Zay Flowers. So I like him over 69.5 yards. Again, the Lions defense, I think, is good. Their front seven is very good. The secondary, I have some issues with overall. And then looking to, for the Lions, going to be looking at Jameson Williams over 22.5 for his longest reception. He gets deep downfield. The Ravens have allowed 7+ 20-yard receptions or more through just the first 2 weeks. This is a clear spot for J-Mo to get deep and get over the top of the big reception.
Should be a fun one here tonight. As Tom said, I think a great litmus test for both of these teams. And Tom, when we come back, got to go over. I mean, Rob Manfred wanted extra playoff teams and wild card teams in Major League Baseball because he hoped this final week of the regular season would have some value, and it's got some value. And we'll talk about that when we get back here. It's the early line on the grid.
If you're in the Super Bowl market, if you're in the futures market, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill is heavily connected to the Kansas City Chiefs. I am sure it would be Tyreek's first place if he could pick to go back to. At least I would think it would be. And the Chiefs have a need, and the Chiefs are interested, and they're not worried about any of his other question marks.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
51-0, Donnie.
Yeah.
Those numbers don't lie. Georgia, every time they rush for over 200 yards, that's dating back from 2017 against FCS and FBS opponents. They don't lose. The 2 years that they won back-to-back national championships, year one, they rushed for over 208 times. Year two, when they beat TCU, that year they rushed for over 206 times.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Look at the weather, try to look for some anytime touchdowns or maybe some props that you really feel confident about. But it's always the time for urgency, especially for a team like the New York Giants. I think that defense is something that can give Giants fans hope. And then if you get Dart under center, it's hope. And then if you can get Scatterboo out there and the whole building's going boo, it's hope. And as we know, hope works.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid. It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in here. The early line. It's a Monday fun day. We love this. I'm Joe Ranieri, joined again by our good friend Tom Vecchio, as while we're getting ready for one more NFL game to close out week 3 of the season, we've got the final week of Major League Baseball upon us. Only 3 games here today. We'll run through these, but the storylines are just over the top with collapses left and right. The Mets no longer in a postseason berth if the season ended here today. You got the Detroit Tigers, who haven't won a game, it feels like, in a month now, all of a sudden in desperation mode, may not win the American League Central or make the postseason. It is bonkers what's coming up this week. But isn't that exactly, Tom, what Manfred wanted? Like games to mean something in the final week of the regular season?
Yeah, this is, I guess, what you want, but it's like, turned up to 11, as they say. Like, this is like the extreme outcome. And it's not just like, okay, the Mets, they collapsed. Oh, it's the Tigers, they collapsed. It's like, oh, Houston had the lead, they collapsed. It's like all of those things are happening all at the same time, all in the same season, which is absolutely crazy. The Tigers, I had a lot of confidence in, at least when it came to their lineup top to bottom. They made some good additions at the deadline. Then they DFA'd Charlie Morton, who they traded for. Their pitching staff has been all over the place. The hitting simply isn't there for them. I remember that you were pretty low on their offense overall. The Astros, a lot of people were buying into the Astros. I was very low on the Astros because they were dealing with 18 injuries. I think they had players on the IL, and the Mariners made additions at the deadline. I kept saying the Mariners had the best pitching staff in all of baseball, and what do you know? They keep rising to the top. Cal Raleigh's having an unbelievable season. And then the Mets, absolutely horrible collapse from them when you're looking at their record since the All-Star break, since June when they started off the season. It's all over the place, and the fact that the Reds control their own destiny at this point is unbelievable, and not to mention that the Yankees and the Blue Jays have a big series coming up. I know the Blue Jays clinched their spot, but still a lot to be locked up in this last week.
Yeah, and well, you got 3 games here today. It's going to start 7:15 here with the Nats taking on the Braves. And, had this been 3-4 months ago, this would have been a fantastic pitching matchup with Mackenzie Gore going up against Chris Sale. Now, to Gore's credit, he had a rough go of it here this season, but he's only allowed 2 runs in his last 10 1/3 innings. And Chris Sale, came off the IL there, has pitched well. Atlanta bats red hot. What are we doing here with a low total of 7?
In my mind, a part of me wants to take unders on strikeouts for pitchers on teams that are eliminated, which is what we essentially have here. But I also don't mind a first 5 under, but then actively looking to take an in-game over, because once Sale and Gore are in the game, you give me these bullpens who've been terrible all year, whether it's May, June, July, we're sitting here, towards the end of September, a first 5 under, but then like a live over because the bullpen's coming to play once these pitchers are out. That's where I'm looking right now. And that's, again, you have to be actively looking to do that. If we get like a live 4.5 in game, jump on that.
Brewers taking on the Padres here tonight. Another good pitching battle here, if it was outside of anything else other than this game here, as Peralta is going up against Pivetta. Now, Pivetta much better in San Diego than he's been on the road. Freddie Peralta, I think, has given up no runs or 1 run here in 6 of his last 7 starts. So what gives in this one?
This game, I think, is really tough because the Padres technically haven't clinched their spot, but they are very secure in their wild card seeding. The Brewers have clinched the Central. We know that. They are very secure in their spot. So a part of me is very hesitant to back either pitcher, especially Peralta on the road, because if they just want to get him out there for 5 innings, 60 pitches, 70 pitches, whatever happens, give it 1 run, he has a no-hitter going, he has a perfect game. It's like, he doesn't need to be out there for literally anything. So we want to reel them in, get him, or keep him healthy for 2 weeks from now, or a week and a half from now when the playoffs start. I'm very hesitant on both of these pitchers because, again, the Padres are not locked into their spot, but they don't need to have Pivetta out there. They need the win, but they don't need Pivetta. So I would start looking for more and more unders.
Cards taking on the Giants. Verlander has pitched better than his record indicates, especially lately. Does he get it done here at home?
I would back them in the first 5, knowing that this is like the last dance for Verlander, essentially. They're all but eliminated from the playoffs. They made a great push the last month or so, but they need to come away with the win. They need a million other things for them to happen if they're going to make the playoffs. But I would back Verlander the first 5 in what could be his last start ever, partly just for the story.
Yeah, and McGreevy's a contact pitcher. He's not going to
terrible.
strike anybody out, so this is not a good spot there. But we got plenty more to get to here. We only got 1 hour in the books. We got much more coming up, and Tom, should be a heck of a final week of Major League Baseball. We'll see you again later this week. We got another hour of the early line coming up next on the Grid.